If you have a radical in the denominator, it's illegal, wrong in math. Honestly, it just doesn't look pretty, and that's why they don't like them. And that's why it's called rationalizing the denominator, to get rid of the radical in the denominator. So it depends on what type of problem you have. If you have two separate terms, a whole number and a radical, you have to multiply by the conjugate. If you remember what the conjugate is, it's the same two terms, but the sign in between the two terms is the opposite sign. So if this is minus, that would be a plus. If that was a plus, that would be minus for the conjugate. The other thing would be if you only have one radical. Doesn't matter if you have one radical with one term and one radical with two terms underneath it. You're only going to multiply by the radical itself in the numerator and denominator to cancel out the radical in the denominator. Because whatever you do to the numerator, you have to do to the denominator when you're rationalizing it, because you're trying to change the value. So for the first one, I want to get rid of square root of x minus 2 in the denominator. So that's under one radical, so I'm just going to multiply by the square root of x minus 2 divided by the square root of x minus 2. Because it's all underneath one radical, so I'm not changing anything, I'm just multiplying by that same radical. So I have 5x minus 10 times the square root of x minus 2. And whenever you multiply two of the same square roots by each other, square root of x minus 2 and times square root of x minus 2 is just going to give me what's underneath the radical. So x minus 2. If I want it in simplest radical form, is there anything you could do with that 5x minus 10 is what you need to check. I can factor out a 5, so I'd have x minus 2 times the square root of x minus 2 divided by x minus 2. Now I have the same quantity, x minus 2 and x minus 2. I can't cancel with the x minus 2 underneath the radical because it's not outside the radical. Since it's underneath the radical, it's not going to do anything. So I'm just going to be left with 5 times the square root of x minus 2 would be my answer. For the second one, I have 1 plus the square root of 3. So I have two terms, one whole and one radical. So I want to multiply by the conjugate. So since it's 1 plus radical 3, I'm going to have 1 minus radical 3 as my conjugate. And since I have a quantity on top and a quantity in the denominator, I have to FOIL both of them. So 6 times 1, 6. 6 times negative radical 3. When you multiply a whole number in radical, you can't, so it's just going to be 6 radical 3. Negative radical 3 times 1 is going to give me negative radical 3. And then negative radical 3 times negative radical 3 is going to give me a positive. Square root of 3 times square root of 3 would be square root of 9, which is just going to simplify to 3. And divided by, I want to FOIL the denominator now, so 1 times 1 would give me 1. 1 times negative square root of 3 would give me negative square root of 3. Square root of 3 times 1 would be positive square root of 3. And radical 3 times negative radical 3 would be a negative 3. Whenever you're multiplying by the conjugate, the two middle terms should always cancel out with each other. They should be opposites of each other. And if that doesn't happen, then you're factoring wrong or simplifying wrong or multiplying by the wrong conjugate. So I want to simplify anything in the numerator that I can. So I have a 6 and a 3 that are both whole numbers, so I'd have 9. Negative 6 square root of 3 minus, you could put a 1 there if you wanted to. 1 square root of 3 would be negative 7 square root of 3. And then 1 minus 3 would give me